80% of people never get past the logo when judging a business. And today's guest knows exactly why. She is multi-award winning brand consultant, a best-selling author, and a woman who's helped hundreds of leaders go from invisible to unforgettable. With a background working with giants like L'Oreal and Toyota, she ditched a glitz of media parties to build brands with purpose and rebuild her own life after a deeply personal health journey. She is the superhero behind the scenes of some of the most authentic and magnetic personal brands out there. Welcome to another episode of Founders Podcast. I'm your host, Ash, and this is a show where I interview proven founders and industry experts who share their stories, strategies, and insights to help you build, launch, and grow your business. In this episode, I talk to Sapna, personal and business brand consultant. Sapna, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great stuff.
Hi.
Do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires or motivates you would like to share with our audience?
Oh, that's a good question. A favorite quote? I like Nike's "Just Do It."
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Who doesn't,
very
right? Yeah.
very action focused. But yeah, and my own personal is just say yes. Because like some of my friends call me the yes girl because I'm always up for new adventures and new experiences, and I always think that things happen when you say yes. Like nothing will change if you say no. Nothing bad will happen if you say no. And if you want things to stay
Mm-hmm.
the same, then no is perfectly fine and a viable option. But if you want change in your life, then say yes. Say yes to new stuff. Say yes to opportunities. And so just say yes is another quote that I live my life by.
Indeed. And I like it so much. So, Sapna, I'm eager to learn more about you as a person. Can you take us back to your roots and share with our listeners about your upbringing, your childhood? How did your early experiences shape your journey and eventually led you to become a visionary brand consultant?
Oh, wow. Well, there's two strands there. There's one that I was always creative. So I was drawing
Mhm.
since I was two. And then fast forward, I ended up going to art college and became did design, but then did marketing, fell into media, which is why I ended up working with lots of big brands, like you said, like L'Oreal and
Mhm.
Mercedes and Toyota, lots of huge brands. So I did that for like 20 years. And then children came along and that changed everything. So I started my business like 8 years ago. And then I
Oh,
took that big brand experience into helping entrepreneurial brands. So I think that's really the main journey. But along that way, I kind of managed to disappoint my Asian family a little bit by going into art design. Like my parents were doctors, and my brother was a vet, and so they were all medics. So I think I was a little bit of the outlier. My dad wanted me to be an optician. I still have
mhm.
his board, his vision board.
Oh, I can see that.
But
Yeah.
yeah, you can see that was actually my dad's.
Mhm.
He's no longer with me anymore. But it was quite funny because I then became this brand consultant and I brought my book out, Let's Get Visible. And my friend was reading the introduction when I was writing it. And she said,
Mhm.
"Isn't it funny that your dad was an eye surgeon and he helped people to see, and you've become a brand consultant and you help people get visible? And your book is Let's Get Visible. And the symbol for your methodology, which is called the vision process, is an eye." And I was
There you
like,
go.
"Oh my gosh." Like my dad was an eye surgeon. And actually, if you open my book, my methodology is around an eye. So it's kind of very close to that whole optician that my dad wanted me to be, right? But there's the
Mm.
eye, look.
There you go. The vision process.
Yeah, the vision process. So yeah, so the apple didn't fall too far from the tree in the end.
There you go.
But yeah, my dad helped people see. I help people get visible, feel seen, and be understood, and then they can make their bigger impact.
Definitely. Um, tell our listeners more about, like, you went from media glamour to some, meaningful branding nowadays. What triggered that pivot? I mean, you mentioned that the children came, but obviously that shouldn't be the only reason, right? has to
Oh,
be something integral.
it was a big part of it actually.
Hmm.
Once the kids were born, that I actually got postnatal depression after the second child and decided not to go back to work for a little while. My husband was setting up his business, so I did his branding and created his brochures, and because I had that skill set. So I said,
Hmm.
well, I'll do that for you. Now, his brochure got held up at an entrepreneurial event by the speaker
Okay.
as the gold standard.
Wow.
and
Wow.
uh, and so he came home that day, and I sort of tell the story. I had a baby on one hip and a toddler at my feet playing, and my husband handed me these 7 business cards of
Okay.
entrepreneurs who wanted to work with me, and I said, "What's this?" And he said, "This is people who want to work with you."
There
I
you
was
go.
like, "Oh wow," because I was actually studying for a second degree in interior design,
Mm.
thinking, "Oh, I want to go and be an interior designer."
Hmm.
I thought there was a business I could build around the children, et cetera, et cetera. And then I looked at it and I thought, gosh, I've got all this big brand media experience. I could be helping entrepreneurial brands and entrepreneurs level up and like look and feel the part of big brands. I can bring that big brand experience to entrepreneurial brands and help them, be seen, convey their messaging, like understand what they stand for, what they don't stand for, all of
Hmm.
that. And so because I had the marketing and the advertising and the sales background, I've got a very commercial way of it. It's not just about the logo, colors, and fonts. Like
Mm.
you said at the beginning, it's not just about your logo, but a brand is so much more than that. It gives people a reason to choose. People make emotional connections with brands, and that's why I help people to convey their messaging, their positioning, their big vision that can get other people on board with it, whether
Mm.
they're looking for investment, whether they're looking for clients, whether they're trying to attract followers. It's to build that business to stand for something, and that's what I help people do, as well as get visible, and then create a brand that attracts the kind of people they want to work with.
Interesting. So this podcast is all about startups and founders. In
Mm.
your opinion, then, what's the biggest branding mistakes startups make in their early days?
So the big mistake, and I was actually just talking to a startup before we recorded this podcast, actually.
Mhm.
When I was spoken to one of the co-founders, and he was like, "Oh, I don't really believe in all this brand stuff, you know." So one thing is not believing that the brand is going to have an impact on your business. And so what I see people do is very often they will do it on the cheap. They might try and do it themselves. Um, they'll go to Fiverr and they'll get a logo and then slap it on and think that's a brand. Now, for some people, that is all they can afford at that time. If they're bootstrapping, then absolutely, bootstrap away and get going. But understand that growth will come faster
Mm.
when you have a proper brand, right? Because the brand not only, as I say, conveys so much more than the logo. It makes your messaging clear. It makes if people can understand what it is that you're about, that's going to help buy in much quicker, whether that is customers, investors. You need to be able to feel confident. And I've seen time and time again when I've worked with clients, their level of confidence goes sky high. It's like having a great makeover, right? You see
Mm.
makeover shows all the time and the before and after. And it makes people feel confident. Now you carry that confidence into the pitch when you're going to pitch for business, when you're having a business meeting, you carry that confidence. But also your customers see that confidence and they feel that confidence, not only just in you, but also in your brand, in your collateral, when they land on your website, when you hand over a card. And it makes them feel in safe hands if you look professional. I always say, if you want the business, you've got to look the business.
Indeed.
And it's like dressing your company for the business that you want. So I think the big mistake that people make is not realizing the power that can have, and how a poor brand can actually be losing you sales silently, and you won't realize. I have people sometimes say to me, well, when I get more clients, I'll get my branding done. I'm like, you know
Mm.
what? If you get your branding done first, you'll get more clients. It will get you a return on investment a lot quicker.
It's that chicken and egg situation, isn't it? Like, how
Completely.
if you want to invest into that. I
Yeah.
am quite eager because I looked into your book, and I'm quite eager to learn more from you as guest on our show about your vision process. Can you walk us through your vision process and tell our audiences why does it work?
It is very powerful. It actually blows me away how powerful it is because we can rebrand a business in a day using the vision process,
Mm,
right? So yesterday I rebranded a founder's business. We start at 9:15, we finish at 5:45, and the entire business is transformed. So we start with it's 6 steps, VISION, vision, and the first 3 steps are strategy based. So there's no point leaping. This is another mistake that people make is they kind of go, oh, I'll pick my favorite fonts and colors and
mm,
that's my brand. But there's no point putting that's like putting wallpaper on a house that hasn't been built yet.
mm,
You need to start with the strategy. You need to start with the foundations, right? And so I work with we look at visualize first, and we look at the big brand vision. So I get my clients to do an exercise called the FAB exercise, which is
mhm,
5 aspirational brands. Now, this is something I came up with myself.
mhm,
But when you're looking to rebrand your company, think about the kind of brands that mean something to you and that are aspirational for your company. Like you look at that company and you go, well, I want to be a bit like them. I want to be like them when my
mm,
company grows up. So for me, for example, we're UK based, right? This
mhm.
podcast is mainly UK. So most of your listeners will have heard of John Lewis.
Yep.
So for
Yeah.
me, when I was doing this exercise for my own brand, it's like, well, I want my brand to be like a John Lewis of, now that's not very trendy. It's not a cool design brand, but what does John Lewis mean to you?
I think if I am going to John Lewis and I'm shopping, I have this kind of trust that I'm getting like
Yeah.
one of the best quality products.
Yeah.
And then I'm also assured that if I go back with any kind of complaint, I will get very good customer service, just like I usually get in Apple, for example.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's it's
Which
it's
is another
not
one of my brands. Yeah.
there you
Yeah.
go. So it's not exactly like Apple level because it's a $1 trillion company, but it kind of gives me that vibe, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I want my customers to feel the way that they feel when they shop at John Lewis,
Mm-hmm.
when they work with me. So it's a safe pair of hands, it's a partnership, it's trust, it's quality, it's never knowingly underpriced. It's good quality for the money. They're not the cheapest, they're not the most expensive, but it's really great value. And the customer service, as you said, is second to none. So with my clients, they get lifetime support after they've worked with me on their brand. We might only take one day to create that with them, but they are supported for the rest of their time. They've got that brand. They can come back to me with any questions at any stage. So that's the kind of way that I feel John Lewis is aspirational for my brand. Apple, you mentioned, is another aspirational brand for me. For me, that's about form and function coming together. It's amazing functionality, but beautifully packaged. And that's what I aim for with my clients. What I give them is something a solution that really works for their business, but also looks amazing as well.
Mm.
So it's the two together. There's no point just having something that looks pretty if it doesn't support your business goals. So the 5 aspirational brands is a really important part of my methodology. And we
Mm-hmm.
go through those 5 brands, pulling out different things from each brand. And it's like, this is what we want to build into your brand. This is what we want your brand to mean. We then look at the company vision, where they are now and where they want to be in the next 3 to 5 years. And that's a specific time frame because the brand should last them at least that amount of time. So the
Mm-hmm.
brand that we're building is for the future 3 to 5 year company rather than just today. And that's another mistake people make with their branding is they kind of build it for now. And then 18 months down the road, they're like, oh, we've outgrown that brand. It doesn't really represent us anymore. Or we're doing something else now and that name's not right for what we're doing right now. Or
Mm-hmm.
do you see what I mean? So I future proof the name, the brand, everything that we do so it works for the future. And then we also look at the customer vision. So who they are, but what their problems are, what are the problems that they're going to be solved by working with you? How are their lives going to be transformed? Their lives or their business is going to be transformed. Why would they recommend you? Why would they queue around the block to work with you? What's your reputation going to be? So we go a little bit deeper than just the avatar. It's like, what are they saying about you? And what will they be telling their friends, their colleagues? So all of that is in visualize. And then we look at I for inner brand. Now, inner brand is what I call the unseen part of the brand. It's the heart and soul, but it's where we make the emotional connection, because your brand has to make a head and a heart choice. Which is, I work with a lot of heart-led founders, a lot of impact-driven entrepreneurs that are trying to do something bigger than just make money, right? So there's a heart-led feel to this, and we build emotion into the brand as well. There's something powerful around that grasps people's emotions and their imaginations. So we look at the brand values, we look at brand personality, and we look at brand voice. So what are the values that people are going to align themselves with? Because you're not going to work with a company who you feel has values opposite to yours. And so it certainly, again, gives you another reason to choose. And then we also look at the brand personality. How is that brand going to feel? And how is that brand going to sound? What's the language, the brand voice? What language do they use? What language do they not use? And that's really important to resonate with your target audience. You realize who that audience is. How are you going to speak to them? So that's I. And then S is stand out. And stand out is where we get visible. Or visual, should I say. And this is where we look at branding. We start with looking at brands in your target area, in your sector. So if you are a business coach or a tech founder, we will look at other tech brands or other business coach brands. And this is where we generally see most people have really, really awful branding in these sectors. And everyone always goes, I'm not really feeling very inspired by what's out there. I'm like, yeah, you're meant to feel that way. So then we kind of stretch out the search, and that search is very personal for each client, which way we go with that. But we end up looking at other industries, related industries. We sort of look outside that industry. So for a business coach, we might also look at tech businesses, or we might look at, if they're if they've got a sector or a speciality. We might look at educational establishments. We might look at it kind of varies according to where the client wants to go. So then
you kind of mimic what sort of other brands are doing in the similar industry, and then potentially find an opportunity.
Well, we're getting information at this stage, and we're looking at, the information I'm gathering is what works in this industry, what doesn't work in this industry, what looks good, what doesn't look good, what does the client like, what does the client not like. We're pulling together I use Pinterest, and I pull together a Pinterest board of information about that industry. And you'll tend to see trends in every industry. There are trends which can tend into visual cliche. So if you think about financial establishments or companies, what color do you think of, for example?
For me, I think if I'm looking at the financial company, I want colors which are more security focused. So for example, I don't know, JP Morgan or Barclays, they have very
Blue.
subtle color. Yeah, very subtle.
Blue. Right. So a lot of financial companies will go with blue. And what that, at the extreme end, you could say that's a visual cliche, right? Yes, it does say safe, secure, professional, authority, trust. And that's why a lot of financial institutions use blue. But then you think of HSBC and they use red, right? And that's from the Far East. They're Far Eastern. Red is the color of good fortune and wealth and prosperity. So there are cultural things that we've got to think about as well. But if you wanted to stand out in an industry, and certainly the tech world uses a lot of blue as well. The tech entrepreneur I was working with yesterday, we looked at that sector. There's a lot of blue, a little bit of green, and it's very male focused, male dominant industry. So, and his energy is not like that actually. And so we ended up going with something that was actually purples and pinks and oranges, which will help you stand out in that industry, right? It will help make people realize you're doing things slightly differently, and you're certainly not going to blend out. Now, you don't want to do that. There's three aspects. There's type, there's color, and there's imagery. There's three aspects to your brand. So you don't want to do all three of them different, because then you look completely unrecognizable. But you take one aspect of that and twist it up. So what we did for him was we twisted up the colors to make him look different. But a lot of the other things looked fairly similar, so that he's, if you went too different, then people might think, oh, he's a wedding planner, or
Mm.
you're completely not in the. If you went with a script font, and so we kind of look at some of those things, and we walk in that tightrope of, let's look recognizable in your industry, but actually let's twist it up a little bit to make it look different, and so you stand out. My whole ethos is about creating standout brands, because if you are not standing out, you are blending in. And if you are blending in, you're not being seen. And if you're not being seen, you're as good as invisible. And
Mm.
then it doesn't matter how good you are, because if people don't see you, they can't buy you. Nobody can buy what they can't see. So the first touch point is to create a standout brand that is going to grab your attention visually. And I've got a model in the book called the Do Say See model.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the 3 pillars of building a brand. So it's everything you do, everything you say, and everything you see has to align. If you think of 3 circles like in a Venn diagram overlapping each other, the first thing that an entrepreneur will think of when they're starting a business is what they're going to do. That's the first thing, right? So what is the product or service you're selling? How are you going to make your money? How are you going to make your difference to the world? How are you going to deliver that? Is it online or offline? Do you do it yourself? Is it a team? Is it one-to-one or one-to-many, the delivery? So everything is about the nuts and bolts. What equipment will you need? What property will you need? Do you need a van to deliver stuff? Do you need premises? So that's the nuts and bolts of how you're going to deliver your service. That's all in do. Then we look at say. And say is about telling people about your business, right? It's the written and the spoken word. So it's everything from your social media post to the blurb on your website, to your social pitch when you go networking, your elevator pitch, your pitch deck, when you're appearing on a podcast like this, if you're writing a book, everything that communicates what it is that you do, your social media posts, your YouTube videos, everything, that's your say.
Mm.
Because that's getting your message out to the world and explaining and communicating with people the difference that you're going to make to them. Now, the other mistake that people do is they focus on the do, they focus on the say, and then they go, I've run out of time now, I just want to get going, or, and just slap a logo on it. But your C is not just the logo. Your C is the first impression.
Mm.
Now, the first impression is when people land on your website, on your social media, when you walk into a room, it's the first impression people get of you. Oh, and by the way, it's when you have a Zoom call with someone and people see what's in your Zoom room, right? People are missing these areas where they can build their brand and say something about themselves and actually pull it all together and be coherent and cohesive across every different platform, online and offline, where they show up. So if you have a brand that isn't representing the quality of the business that you say, if you've got top quality product or service, and that's what you're telling people, but then your brand looks cheap and homemade, there's a disconnect, right?
Mm.
And there's a lack of, where there's a disconnect in any communications, there's a lack of trust. You imagine if you meet someone, if you meet a friend or your partner, and you say, are you all right? Or how are you? And they go, fine. But they're not looking at you, and they've got their arms folded, right? They've got their arms folded and they're turning away. Now you're picking up visual signals that something's not all fine. They're saying the right word. They're saying they're fine. But actually what you're seeing is not. So people will make their decisions and make their minds up first on the visual, then what they hear, then what's actually going on, right? And that goes back to cavemen days, because you had to be able to see that animal running over the horizon. You would tell whether it's one that's going to eat you and you should start running before you hear it, and certainly hopefully before it does anything to you. So it's that way around. When you're dating, you judge, or even when you're networking, you'll judge someone first on appearance. Oh, they look nice, they look friendly, I'll go over and talk to them. You haven't even heard a word from them. It's the same with brands.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's human nature.
So we covered visualize first in a brand and stand out. I think the remaining is just.
And then I get very went off the track. Thanks for bringing me back. So I then is what we do in the afternoon is all about design and implementation. I stands for image.
Hmm.
And we go back to it's all about type, color, and imagery. This is when we start designing. Like first, we'll start with designing the logo. Yes, because it's the pinnacle of your brand. It's if you call your brand is like an iceberg, it's the tip of the iceberg. But there's a whole, the stuff that the strategy we do is under the water, and then what other follows is above the water is colors, imagery, messaging. There's all sorts of aspects to the brand rather than just the logo, how it shows up, photography, illustration. So we look at all of those aspects. And that's all part in image. And then O for output is where we start pulling all those things together into brand guidelines. And the output is really all those brand assets that we create for you that allow you to then put it out in various different formats, whether it's on your website, your brochures, your business cards, that's the outputs. And then N for nurture is how are you going to look after that brand now that you've got your shiny new brand? What happens next? And it's about keeping consistency over time. So another mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make, I see, is they get bored with their brand. And after a couple of years of working with it 24/7, and then they kind of go, oh, I know, I'll add another color in there. Maybe I'll tweak it and add another typeface. And I'll do this. And oh my goodness. But the thing is, right, you should get bored with your brand. Because if you're bored with your brand, it means that other people are just getting familiar with it. You see it 24/7. They see for every post you put out, only 5% of your audience see it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. 3 to 5.
And it's fleeting. And do you know how much we scroll every day?
Oh my
No,
God.
every 20 days, sorry, every 20 days, the height of Mount Everest. The
Wow.
height of Mount Everest.
This is how much you
So,
school for every 20
right.
days.
Yeah, every 20 days. Did you know your thumb was so athletic? How athletic. Right? But that means if you're putting out a little social media post, it's like, it's gone. So you need to show up consistently with your brand. Don't keep changing the colors. Don't keep changing the typefaces. Stay consistent because that's when people start to build recognition. And recognition, I believe, is the fourth pillar. Everyone talks about know, like, and trust. Everyone talks about that, but recognition comes before know, like, and trust.
I like this no like and trust analogy. That's pretty impressive, Sapna. Like you have mentioned every single thing which I've done in my life, being
Wow.
founder of multiple startups. We do all these mistakes. We do all these
Oh,
mistakes, and
right.
and
Okay.
and I can see it now because I'm visualizing it. That yes, if I have done this, or I have been consistent, or if I've looked into this particular section, I would have gained more brand currency in that sense, isn't it?
Hmm. I've
That's
done it. I've done this process with hundreds of entrepreneurs, and it's the same patterns over and over and over again, which is kind of why I wrote the book.
yeah. And that's why it's very, very important for our listeners to not just listen to this episode, but also think about their brand, even
Yeah,
their individual or their organization, right?
yeah.
Um,
And the book won an award actually for Startup Inspiration. So
oh,
it won a
perfect.
global business book award for Startup Inspiration. So I was blown away by that when that happened. I'm very proud of that.
There is, there you go. I have to put that into my reading list now.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say to you that if your listeners want to connect with me, then I'll be able to get them a free PDF copy of the book. So we'll
Oh,
sort that out
awesome.
later, and we can sort something out later.
Perfect. That sounds amazing. Okay. I know we are running out of time, but I'm so involved into this conversation that I don't want to miss this opportunity, talking to you. So before we move to our second section, I really I want to know that what role does happiness plays in business success, especially for solo founders?
Um, well, happiness. Yeah. I mean, without happiness, I think happiness is more important than riches. I mean, happiness is riches, right? So, I think it's an interesting one because I've been on my own happiness journey recently. Did you know about this? Did we talk about
I
this?
I did remember a little bit about it. That's why I thought, let me ask this
Okay.
question
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
show and then learn
So
more
so I've
about it.
had a rocky few years. My, as I say, I started the business 8 years ago. The book came out in 2020 and won the award, and I was flying high with the business, and everything was going fine until 2022 when I was diagnosed with cancer, breast
Oh,
cancer.
I'm so
And
sorry to hear
so
that.
for the last couple of 2 years, like 2022 to 2024, were pretty rough. Not least because also my dad died in that period of time as well. And we moved house, and there was renovations. There was a lot of upheaval, a lot of personal, physical, and emotional upheaval. Um, and it left me feeling very down. I was on cancer medication, and that affected my hormones, and it was destroying my sleep, and my mood was very low. So I've personally been on a journey to rediscover joy. I've come off the cancer medication, by the way, because it was just playing with my head too much. And I've been on a personal journey to rediscover and create joy. I think we have to create, we need to find it and appreciate it. And I've always had a gratitude attitude, but I needed more than that. I've got a wonderful husband and beautiful kids, for which I'm very grateful for, but I needed more. So for me, that meant signing up to borrowmydoggy.com. So we get to borrow dogs because I'm not allowed to have a whole dog right at the moment.
Hmm.
My little one is terrified of barking. And so we can't have a full-time dog at the moment. We're trying to get him used to the art. So Borrow My Doggy has brought a lot of joy into my life. I make more of an effort to, come and see friends and things like that. But also I've started a new networking group
Hmm.
called the Not Workers, because it's like it's a fun networking group. It's like it's not about your 60-second pictures. It's not about small talk. We've got our first meetup on in May on the 22nd, Thursday, the 22nd of May, and it's going to be karaoke. So
Oh,
so
nice.
it's about just doing stuff that I think joy and happiness are so important for our mental well-being.
Hmm.
And I think once you've laughed with someone, I think again that's a fast track to know, like, and trust. So I think when you, rather than saying like, "Hey, what do?" You can go, "What are you singing?" There's a whole different energy around that. And I love singing and I love music. So, and there wasn't anybody doing anything like that, so I thought I'll create it myself.
That's lovely. And are you hosting this meetup in London or?
It is in London, yes, yes. Do you want to come along?
Uh, I'll try my best if I'm in the city. Why not? There you go. Great. So let's jump into the second part of our interview. So let me, if I can share this, share screen. Um, so I usually just go and reiterate through what we have discussed, and then give this cool graphic to our listeners. So you've always been creative since from the childhood. You like painting and everything. You work with quite a big brands in the industry like Toyota, L'Oreal, etc. And then because of some personal reasons you decided to stop working commercially, and then one day this epiphany moment happened when you designed a brochure for your husband's business, and it got renowned in a big event and presented as a benchmark for everyone that this is what the brand should look like, right? That was
Yeah,
cool. Your husband brought a couple of business cards that which shows
7.
that there's traction. There you go, 7 business cards. So that shows that you got traction, right? And
Mhm.
that led you to believe that you could create your own business, your own brand, and then you started working on this new concept of vision, where you not just go to visualize your first aspirational 5 brands. You understand more about the company vision, customer vision. You take your customers through the journey of what in a brand actually will be consistent, like what are the brand values, but personality, etc. Standing out, yeah, the brand, which is more about researching, understanding similar industry trends, what kind of type, imagery, color, is related. Then do say see methodology, which you mentioned, which is already in your book. So I would love to go through that. That's very impressive. Then you go through the whole journey towards the image, where you define the photography, the illustration for the brand, how it's going to be, and then followed by that the output, the brand, guidelines, that nurturing of it, how to keep the brand consistent across, the future journey. So this was what we discussed today. And then we
Hmm.
touched a little bit about your personal happiness journey with Borrow My Doggy, which I think is amazing. If I could put that part into LinkedIn and say, look, you don't necessarily need to have a dog. You can have everything from the dog with Borrow My Dog thing.
Yeah,
So
no, I
that's,
talk about it on LinkedIn. I talk about Peggy, our resident
yeah,
house guest, when we have her.
perfect. Perfect. So that's pretty much it. Anything else I think I've missed here or we discussed, I haven't plotted here?
Karaoke.
Yeah. How can I forget
Karaoke.
that? How can I forget that?
Me with a mic in my hand.
There you go. Karaoke. I don't know how to draw a mic. I'm so bad at drawing.
This is
Great.
really cute.
Cool. I'll put that into the description if people want to check it out.
I've got a mic here. Look, one of my friends got me this.
Nice and good. Nice and
Jewel
good.
encrusted.
Cool. Great stuff. So let's move to the next part of our interview, which is a quick fire round. I've got 6 quick fire questions for you, so try to answer them as quickly as possible.
Cool.
Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Great. What are the top 3 strategies to build a good brand in 2025?
First, strategy, clarity, and consistency.
Strategy, clarity, and consistency. Yeah, I think we touched on all the points. Good one.
Yeah.
What book would you recommend to our audience and why?
Apart from mine, Let's Get Visible.
Mm-hmm.
One of the books that I really enjoyed and sort of started my journey was Daniel Priestley's Key Person of Influence. So if you want to stand out in your industry and kind of become the go-to, that's a really good starting point.
I need to read that one. I'll add that into my reading list. What's one attribute in your opinion, attribute or characteristic in your mind about a successful founder?
Probably dogged determination, persistence, like resilience.
Resilience,
I think,
yeah.
yeah, because there's a lot of knockbacks, there's a lot of hard times, and it's just that belief that you it's also self-belief, I think, is another thing.
Yeah, resilience and self-belief. Yeah, I agree with that. What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
My favorite. That's a really tough one. I don't know.
Do you do
I mean,
notes or?
yeah, notes. Trello. I mean, we use it as a team. Like me and my Trello is probably pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, we use Trello all the time. So yeah, I know. Really good. What's a new or a crazy business idea you would love to pursue if you had time?
I'd love to do karaoke networking up and down country. I think that would
Really?
be amazing.
That's so
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. I want to do something kind of experiential and fun and hands-on. And I love meeting people, and I love gathering people together and having them have a good time. So I did always think I'd be like an events planner or something like that in another life.
Oh my God, that's awesome. That's pretty cool. Well, what's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
I've got lots, but I used to, in my media career, I kind of met quite a lot of famous pop stars and celebrities and things like that. So probably the most famous person I'd ever met was Quentin Tarantino. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. So I have partied with Quentin Tarantino.
There you go. You've got pictures.
I had a really bad picture taken on a really bad phone. It was a Sony Ericsson. Sorry to my former client, but it was really blurry and I don't know where it is now. So there's literally no proof of this. You just have to take my word for it. But I do have a picture of me with Ant and Dec somewhere.
We believe you, Sapna. Don't worry about it. We believe you. We believe you. Yeah. Great. So, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story, unpacking your last few years and building your brand. If people want to get in touch with you, people want to learn more or, sort of understand if you could help them with their brand, what's the best way to do it?
LinkedIn is my main playground. That or karaoke bars in central London. So
Hmm.
if you want to find out about either building your business brand, your personal brand, or you want a good night out with a bunch of other very fun networkers, well, when they're not workers, get contact me on LinkedIn, Sapna Pieroux, and say that you found me on this podcast, and I will be able to get you a free PDF copy of Let's Get Visible as a gift to your
Definitely,
listeners.
definitely.
And I'll send it to you as well.
Definitely, I would love to read that on my plane, journey. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey and the impactful work you're doing through your Let's Get Visible book, but also with the consulting work. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on Founders Podcast.
It's been a pleasure to be there. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you all for tuning into this episode. Make sure to search on LinkedIn Sapna Pieroux. Make sure to bombard Sapna with a lot of questions around branding. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer your questions. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and stay updated on future interviews with proven founders and industry experts. Stay inspired, stay motivated, and keep building.